sponsors and observers, thank you for honoring the invitation and allocating time despite your busy schedule to attend the African Women in Media Summit 2021. My name is Mercy Frank. I'm an anchor at Silver Television, Silver News 24, and I will be your guide in the summit for the next 3 days. This year's theme, Building Resilience, is apt, especially as the world is grappling with the global pandemic. And just when everyone thought, oh, finally, I could get some air, Mr. Omicron hits us with a question. So you think you can? But we say, yes, we can. We have done it before, and we can do that again. That, my dear ladies, is resilience. Let's bring it to what we have to do here today. We're women, we're in the media, and we're in Africa. And we all can testify to how the newsroom is not exempted from the effects of the pandemic, with statistics proving that women journalists suffered even more from the brunt. But is the pandemic the only mountain that women in the media in Africa has to climb? What about inequalities, respect for women's rights, women representation, especially in rooms where decisions are made? Well, AWIM 2021 brings together a fantastic array of practitioners, scholars, CSOs, and policy actors to offer their insight on pertinent questions in these areas, to give all of us the opportunity to ask important questions, and all importantly, to meet colleagues that matters to you. Let me dwell on that a bit. We know we are in an era of the new normal, and attending virtual conferences like this is something we all have to get used to while we are trying to keep ourselves safe from the virus. So apart from listening to the speakers, you'll need to find your way from the main stage to the right rooms for breakout sessions and speed networking sessions. And just like many rooms in the mansion, the app, which is the mobile app that we use, has interactive window. It's more like, consider it virtual rooms. Don't get carried away with technicalities. Its navigation is very user-friendly. Depending on the device you are using, the action buttons are either placed on the bottom of your screen, that is for the mobile device, and at the top of your window, if you're using a laptop or a tablet. Now, if you take a look, you see several options. Let's start with the first, which is agenda. Take a look and take note and pay attention. Tap on agenda or click on it, depending on the device you're using. A new window or a drop-down menu will open for you to see the schedule of the conference, right? Each of the sessions come with details when you click or tap on it. I will advise that during the break, you should add these sessions to your calendar so you do not forget to attend anyone. Apart from the keynote session, which we'll be taking a look at in a bit, I'm quite excited about that. There will be breakout sessions. Please take a look at the one that interests you. And when it is time, click on the specific room that you want to be a part of. It is automatic. The link will take you directly to your room. Should you have any difficulty, just do message me straight up or any of the AWIM officials by tapping on the community or the message button at the bottom of your screen for smartphone users. And that's where you can ask the organizers for anything. And for those viewing with a laptop, click on Engage and Network at the top of the window and draft your message to the AWIM organizers. Well, let's talk about engaging and networking a bit. AWIM 21 is big on this year. So there will be a special session for speed networking. For smartphone users, simply tap on the community button and follow specific topics and bond with the people of like interest. You can also tap on the attendees button and scroll if you want to meet someone specific. To do this as a laptop user, click on the Engage and Network button. You see 3 items on the drop-down menu to the left. Click on any of them to connect on any particular area of interest. You can also click on Attendees button or directly message someone you want to connect with. Aside that, we will have polls, surveys, questions, and pitch zone awards. There will also be opportunities for you to win something. Yes, I know you are itching, but chill. Take a chill pill. These gifts will go to the people whose engagement level rises as the hours count. So engage, engage, engage as much as possible. Of course, there will be games and competitions that will enable you to win. So don't just sit and watch and fold your arms. Participate. You might end up being one of the winners. Just a bit of a housekeeping so that we can get the best out of this event. Do stay in a quiet environment. Do avoid distractions. Arrive on time for your session so you don't get to miss a thing. And try to interact when necessary. Ask questions that are very related to the subject of discussion. Keep your coffee or your water very close to you so you don't have to stand up now and then to get some fluid into your system. You know how much we need to get hydrated, right? Finally, engage. Take whatever you have learned today and share the word on social media using the hashtag AWIM21. That is hashtag AWIM21. You can follow African Women in Media on all social media platforms, as the conversation does not end with this conference. Whenever you hear a word from the speaker and it hits you, feel free to shout or clap. If you are alone in the room, please, if you're not alone, just nod your head or smile so your colleagues don't think otherwise. So we speak different languages, but our aim is the same: to tell stories that matter. So AWIM has put into consideration all our sisters who do not speak English and have made French and Arabic translations available for upcoming sessions. Isn't that awesome? I'd say thank you to AWIM for that. Well, let us set the ball rolling. And I want to get out of your face as soon as possible so we can get the best out of this event. Some people wake up each day guided by these three questions. What am I fixing? What am I making? And who am I helping? Well, Dr. Yemisi Akimbogola has clearly been bitten by the bug hiding in these questions. Hence, the African Women in Media Initiative, and for the 5th edition, the African Women in Media Summit, is providing a platform where women can inspire, support, and empower each other. I can tell you for free that I have benefited from the data journalism course made available by AWIM. And as the co-founder, it will not be out of place to hear from her first. Dear African queens and kings, let's nod our beautiful heads, and if you can put your hands together as Dr. Yemisi, who is the co-founder of African Women in Media, delivers our opening remarks. The floor is yours, Yemisi.
Thank you very much, Mercy. Distinguished guests, honored speakers, ladies and gentlemen, it is an absolute pleasure to welcome you to the 5th African Women in Media Conference. This year's theme is Building Resilience, the Future of Media in Africa, an important theme considering how the world continues to respond to the pandemic. As media practitioners, we ask how we might learn and build on our experiences from the pandemic. As advocates of women's rights in the media, we witnessed the impact of the pandemic and the glaring gaps it revealed in our journey towards gender equality in our industries and other aspects of our life. Now, many of you would have read our reports, our research on the impact of COVID-19 on East African women journalists, which we did last year. And the question is, to what extent are we paying attention to these impacts and taking into consideration the actions recommended? Nonetheless, the inequalities exposed by the global crisis has prompted a renewed commitment to advancing agendas around women's rights and representation. For the next 3 days, we will hear from media practitioners, academics, policy actors, and civil society on various topics at what has become the largest gathering of women's rights in the media in Africa. We are grateful to our partners, the MacArthur Foundation, the African Union Commission, the International Center for Investigative Reporting Nigeria, WANIFRA, Women in News, For Your Media Institute, the UN Environment Program and UN Women, whose support not only meant that we can bring together a distinguished lineup of speakers and trainers, but that we could give free access to all of this rich content that makes up our conference over the next 3 days. So thank you so much for all your support. The first African Women in Media conference was held in 2017 with just 30 people in attendance, and that 30 included the 5 students who supported the event's organization. I can hear one of the interpreters. If they could please mute the mics, thank you. Today, I'm pleased to say that we have over 600 of you registered for this event from across 43 countries. So whether it's your first time attending our conference or you've been with us before, welcome to the African Women in Media family. And it's a pleasure to have among us today Phatiswa Magopeni, Lina, Attalah, and Dr. Sarah Macharia, who are our distinguished keynote panelists who come with an array of expertise and lived experiences that will help set the tone for AWIM 21. So thank you all for being here and for sharing your experiences with us. Last year, 2020, saw AWIM transition from simply organizing an annual event to implementing a range of projects. And at the start of this year, 2021, we spent time taking stock of all of this and reviewing your feedback and what you told us that you want from AWIM. So we started this year, 2021, with our Gender and Digital Media Training Program, which was supported by For Your Media Institute. And through that, we trained over 100 African women journalists. And also, thanks to the support of For Your Media Institute, in January, we piloted AWIM News. AWIM News is our niche news website that focuses on the intersection between women's rights and the media. And together with our founding editor, Sumaya Gaza, and over 30 freelance women journalists across Africa and its diaspora, we published a range of content that demonstrates the importance of platforms like AWIM News. The focus of AWIM News on in the intersection between women's rights and media addresses the glaring issue of inadequate coverage of African women's rights and issues in media discourse. And following the successful pilot of AWIM News, we're pleased to announce today that we're relaunching the website. And over the next 12 months, we'll be announcing a range of projects related to AWIM News. And the success of our partnership with For Your Media Institute on AWIM News also led us to collaborate with them again to develop Source Her, which is a database of African women experts from a range of industries. Now, platforms like Source Her are really important and speak to the need to improve media's representation of African women. So, for example, UNESCO says that only 10% of news stories are focused on women, and women sources in news media comprise just 20% of experts interviewed, and a mere 4% news stories are deemed to challenge gender stereotypes. So our aim through Source Her is to do our part in challenging this gendered practice. And we invite you as journalists, editors, media producers to use our platform Source Her so that you can increase the number of African women experts that you use as sources in your reporting in 2022. And we're going to share a link in the chat just now so that you can sign up to this commitment, this call, and commit to increasing the number of African women that you use as sources in your media content. In May, we launched the photojournalism program with our long-time partners, the African Union Commission and the German Development Agency, GIZ. We launched the Agenda 2063 Women Photojournalism Awards. We also researched the lived experiences of African women photojournalists, and our mini podcast series explored these lived experiences further. And we also carried out training across 3 courses related to photojournalism. And through that program, we trained 50 African women journalists across the 3 courses. Many of you will remember that in 2019, we announced our partnership with Wikimedia Foundation Nigeria and launched our visibility project. And the aim of the project was to increase the number of African women represented on platforms like Wikipedia. And in 2020, thanks to UNESCO and the IPDC, we trained 200 women as Wikipedia editors, and we organized a series of editathons. And as a result of these activities, we have created 598 new profiles of African women on Wikipedia. And as part of our pre-conference activities this year, thanks to the support of the MacArthur Foundation, we have trained a further 100 women as Wikipedia editors. So in addition to all of this, we also redeveloped our learning management platform, AWIM Learning, which was in response to feedback from you as trainers and as trainees. AWIM Learning gives you access to media training in a way that is accessible and manageable. And we've also been very deliberate in terms of how we design our pedagogical approach to our training. And as Mercy mentioned earlier on, she was one of the trainees that we supported this year. And it's always comforting to hear the impact of our programs and see the growth in the various communities of practice that we develop from the programs. So far, we have 15 of such community of practices, from the group with women journalists who cover protests like EndSARS in Nigeria, to a group of over 200 East African women journalists who participated in our risk communication program. These communities allow us to have that continuous engagement with you all beyond the training, so that we can continue to share and use these spaces as safe spaces to ask questions and share our lived experiences. And I want to just highlight that again, about safe spaces for media women to learn and to share. And this is one of the many reasons that AWIM was established, and one of the many lessons that we've learned about the benefits of women-only training spaces. And our colleague and friend Salim Musi from Ethiopia will be sharing more about this and what she calls radical spaces for women in media at our panel tomorrow on breaking barriers for African women in media. In a moment, I'll be inviting our partners to give some brief remarks. But before I do that, I'm pleased to announce one of our projects. We're going to be doing a number of projects next year, but I'm going to announce just one now. It's with pleasure that AWIM has partnered with the UN Environmental Programme in Africa to launch the Africa Environmental Journalism Programme. And the project is underpinned by the African Green Stimulus Programme and the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And it will see us invite freelance journalists and content producers to pitch environmental stories focused on Africa, especially the gendered aspects of environmental issues. And the journalists who are commissioned through the project will have access to training, and will also be working with media partners to ensure that they have access to quality environmental stories. Given the global conversation around the environment, this is a timely and vital project that ensures that women's voices and the broader environmental challenges in Africa do not get forgotten. So we're grateful to UNEP for supporting African women journalists in this way. And we're hiring an editor who will support us in this project. So we're going to share a link below so that you can look through it and see if you'd like to apply to support us with this project. Finally, it was also great, it's with great pleasure that AWIM was able to support 2 of our members to organize their own activities this year. And the first one was one of our photojournalism awardees, Arlette Bashizi, who's from the DRC. And she organized a photo exhibition focused on documenting the life, especially the professional life, of people living with disabilities. And the objective of that project was to celebrate the achievements of this often neglected community by exhibiting photos that disclose positive and resilient messages about them. We also supported Wemimo Adewuni from Nigeria, who organized a hangout for journalists dedicated to reporting social issues. And during this hangout, they brainstormed and developed strategies looking ahead into 2022 on how they can improve on their social issues reporting in order to have impact through these stories. So a huge well done to Arlette and Wemimo for these brilliant initiatives. And it was a pleasure that we were able to support them. So with all of this, I'm sure you'll agree that AWIM has achieved a lot this year, and I would like to acknowledge the incredible work of my team, Dele Ogunlaye, our co-founder and COO, Irene Odera, our program officer, and Joy Adigwe, our community engagement officer. So we're a very small yet effective team, and I'm super grateful for their dedication to the vision of AWIM. Right, so without much further ado, it is with pleasure that I now invite Dr. Amina Salihu, Senior Program Officer at the MacArthur Foundation, to share with us the work of MacArthur Foundation in Africa. And again, thank you so much for supporting AWIM News. Over to you, Dr. Salihu.
Thank you, my sister Yemisi. And the honor is ours at the MacArthur Foundation to be partnering with the African Women in Media, as well as the International Center for Investigative Reporting. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on your neck of the woods. My name is Amina Salihu, as you heard my sister Yemisi mention. I am in the Africa office of the MacArthur Foundation, which is based in Abuja. MacArthur Foundation has been in Africa for over 30 years, supporting people-led efforts to enable a just, verdant, and peaceful world. And our latest Africa program, called the On Nigeria program, focuses on accountability and yet again supporting citizens to demand that, to have voice, to engage government, and also to have the capacity to be an engaged and empowered citizen. An area of our work really is investigative reporting, because we feel if you want to enable accountability and you want to have the state be more responsive, you need to ensure that there is a set of colleagues who are speaking truth to power. We all know about the dimension of corruption and how it has truncated the capability of the African state, and how women especially and children continue to subsidize the state. So it's been very important to us at the MacArthur Foundation to consider, as part of our work, support to media and investigative journalism generally. And we have used that opportunity not just as a focus only on the sector, but also by asking ourselves the question, what kinds of energies do we need to connect to support the work of journalists, to amplify the work of journalists, for communities to have better understanding of what is at stake, and to engage and to use the outputs from the media and journalism field to demand for better access to resources from the duty bearers. And so our media and journalism work has focused on supporting different organizations across the African continent, many of them in Nigeria, one in Ghana, but also international conferences of this nature, because we recognize that the task of investigative journalism is not just, it's not linked to geography. In fact, it is cross-continent. It has to be so, especially when you're interested in matters of accountability and resource use. And then we realized that even when you're working with a sector as important as media, you also need to be able to support that sector, to be able to look inwards and to ask itself the very hard questions. How exactly is accountability located within the media and journalism field? Who has voice? What kinds of stories are covered? Why are these stories the ones covered? Are there other opportunities and other areas that we need to pay attention to? Specifically, how are people whose work actually matters, but who have been minoritized in the sector, positioned? In this context, women journalists. And because one of our approaches, therefore, is around centering gender equity and social inclusion, we found that through our media and journalism work and other areas we're funding, it's very important to be intentional about asking that question. What exactly does gender equity and social inclusion look like? Women matter, young people matter, persons with disability, the elderly matter, across gender, geography, generation. How exactly is the field shaped to be responsive, so that we're not just speaking truth to power, we're actually ourselves above board and better able, therefore, to speak truth to power. And as you know, dear colleagues, there are many policy movements all over the continent, moments when we need to organize, when we need to be able to engage more effectively and ensure that resources continue to go at the right time to the right people who continue to subsidize the state. The constitutional review movement happening in some of our countries. Elections are always upcoming. Conflict has become a very sad norm, whether it's insurgency or ethnic clashes or citizen uprising. And all of these things are happening against the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic. But with this pandemic, we've all seen that never has women's resilience been more clearly demonstrated in terms of what we have seen around the upsurge of sexual and gender-based violence and of course, poverty, not just poverty materially, but also poverty of voice. And so I guess the question to not just this conference, but to all of us who have been watching this space is, how do we not waste this crisis? How do we use this, lessons of this pandemic as a way to strengthen the media and journalism field itself, but also to strengthen that field to be able to tell the stories that matter to all of us, and to bring those stories to the fore in ways that connect with the community and also challenge our duty bearers to act as much as possible. So these policy moments continue to matter to us, and we're very happy to be part of this conference, and we look forward, therefore, to some of the very important stories we know would emerge that help us shape participation and perspective to power. And we look forward to ideas that we can further support beyond the 5th conference into the future to better shape our media and journalism field to be more intentional about gender equity and social inclusion. I thank you very much for the opportunity of speaking to you today, and wish you a successful conference.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saliu and the MacArthur Foundation, for your support of AWIM 21. Now, as you know, since we started AWIM conferences in 2017, we have always held a pitch zone, which allows attendees to pitch story ideas for the opportunity to win one of our awards and reporting grants. And since 2019, the African Union Commission has supported the pitch zone, and all of you would have received a message on Friday that the pitch zone is now open and will be closed again today at 2 p.m. Central African time. So please do submit your story ideas and project ideas to the 5 categories of the pitch zone this year. Each winner of each category will get $3,500 to produce their project. So please do pitch. It is a pleasure now that I invite Ms. Faith Adiambo, who is going to be representing Ms. Leslie Richard, Director of Information and Communication at the African Union, to share some brief remarks. Faith, over to you.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Yemisi. Good morning, everybody. We're really excited to be part of this project. As Yemisi had said, we've been part of this, I think, since 2018, 2019. So we're very happy about this. So on behalf of the Director of Communications, Director Leslie Richard, and our Head of Communications, Wen Musabayana, I would like to read this speech on our behalf. So here it goes. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen of the media, representatives of the diplomatic corps, development partners, AWIM partners, sponsors, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to the 5th annual AWIM, Africa Women in Media Conference, an important interactive media meeting that brings together women from all spheres of the communication sector, more so the media to discuss opportunities for not only advancing the narratives of African women, but also enhancing the role of women who can play a defining role in retelling the narratives of the African narrative, retelling the African narrative. Our partnership with AWIM is an annual event. It's driven by the fact that African Women Conferences aligns with African Union institutional endeavors for advocating women's rights and girls on the continent, as captured in the Constitutive Act, as well as instruments such as the African Charter for Rights of Women, the African Union Strategy for Gender Equality, and the Women's Empowerment and African Women's Decade for Financial Inclusion and Economic Empowerment, amongst others. It is important to note that the African Union Strategy for Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment emphasizes the need and importance of working with the supporting practitioners in the media, culture and creative industries towards the development of implementing of policies and laws that advance women's equality and fair representation. And this conference is important so that this conference is an important tool we can use to advance the strategy. And I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate AWIM for creating a platform for women in the media industry to share experiences, learn from each other, and advocate for inclusion of women in Africa's media sector, as well as driving the development agenda. The fact that our meeting is being held virtually is an indication that we are witnesses to a dramatic period in history. The emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic, whose effects we are still living through today, has changed the way we live our lives. Indeed, the pandemic has been a game changer for the media and those who create content. The COVID-19 pandemic caused a great pause in the plethora of stories that we told on a daily basis, created a great awareness of what is relevant and necessary as relates to the content we consume, and are forced to create content that is more creative, and to be able to reach our digital audience and be able to have people understand your stories in a short period of time. Conclusively, the increase in the focus of digital communication during this period has also heightened the need to address issues of online harassment of women, and the need to impact strict policies and legal instruments, both by government and media owners to protect women and girls online harassment and threats are forms of gender violence and must be treated as such by the law. I think we all agree if algorithms can identify what we like to buy, the same algorithms should be put in place to shine a light on those using the anonymity of social media to harass and threaten women. And indeed, we agree that the poor representation in women in the tech industry, in which has created new media, has led to us in the situation that we see today. Each year, we celebrate African women journalists and other content creators who highlight African development issues. And I look forward to seeing the outcomes of this year's pitches to honor women who have joined the ranks of those who aim to tell a balanced story about the realities of African development and opportunities for promoting social economic solutions that are defined and driven by Africans. I would also like to encourage you as women in the media to play part in ensuring that all African countries, through their legislative and judicial systems, are implementing the African Charter on Human and People's Rights of Women in Africa, also known as the Maputo Protocol, and the Charter of the Welfare of Children, these are the fundamentals of establishing policies that protect the rights of women and girls and ensure their effective participation in all aspects of society, including addressing a lot of the issues that will be discussed during the course of the conference, so that women can play out their full part in contributing to the building the Africa we want. Thank you, and I wish you success in your deliberations.
Thank you very much, Faith. Thank you very much, Faith, speaking on behalf of Ms. Leslie Richer. Up next is Jane Godier, Africa Director for Wanifre Women in News. Jane, over to you.
Thank you, Yemisi, and distinguished partners and sponsors. I greet everybody in the room, wherever you are. Good morning, good afternoon. I don't know whether I can say good night, but as Women in News, we are happy and honored to be partners in the AWIM 5th conference taking place this year. We have associated with AWIM previously, but not as formally as we have done this year. AWIM's mission and vision speaks to the mission and vision of Women in News. Women in News aims to increase women's leadership and voices in the news. It was started in 2010 after research was conducted, and it was realized that there was a huge absence of women in news, and there was also lack of women in leadership positions within media organizations. Through Women in News, we have programs that aim to increase gender balance in content, gender balance in the organizations, but we are also working to ensure that media organizations are stable, because when they are not stable, women are usually the first victims to be shown the door. We want to see women media professionals progress in their careers to more senior levels, and particularly to be in positions of decision-making. We want to see women media professionals motivated to stay in the industry. We want to see women media professionals and men professionals act as gender and social impact reporting champions. And we want to see our media partners apply business and gender strategies and best practices. But who are these? We have been working in 15 countries in Africa, in the Arab region, and in Southeast Asia. But in Africa, we are in Botswana, we are in Kenya, we are in Malawi, we are in Rwanda, we are in Uganda, we are in Somalia, we are in Tanzania, we are in Zambia, we are in Zimbabwe, and we are entering South Sudan by December. This year, actually, we are starting to get into South Sudan. What do we do at Women in News? And why is Women in Media important for us? We have the WIN Leadership Accelerator Program, an intensive career in media leadership development program for journalists and editors. And we accept more than 200 applicants every year. We are growing. We started with accepting like about 5 or 15, but we have since grown. We try to bring an understanding to media organizations so that they can really take seriously these issues that we've discussed, like what Amina has said and what Yemisi has said and what the AU has said, that they must understand the importance of treating women and men equally in organizations, making this their culture through developing the right policies. We want to see barriers removed that prevent women from rising to positions of leadership. So we are keen on training on managing and preventing sexual harassment in the newsroom. We are keen on ensuring that there's gender balance in content. When I speak about sexual harassment in media, WIN has been taking leadership in the region in conducting research around sexual harassment. It did this in 2017. It did another research in 2020. The 2020 research indicated that 1 in every 2 women has been sexually harassed. And it was also realized that sexual harassment is the reason why women are leaving the media to go and stay at home and not pursue careers of their choice that they had initially aspired for. In Women in News, we realized that COVID was a big problem. And we came up with the Social Impact Reporting Initiative, where we were giving grants to not only journalists, but also to media organizations. And we continue to do that. We have our WIN Editorial Leadership Award, which recognizes exemplary contribution of an editor to her newsroom. And this is the 5th year that we have had it. Our latest editorial laureate is Edith Kambalame from Malawi. What I want to say today as we speak about building resilience and as we speak about issues that affect women in the media, I want to say that as Women in News, we remain concerned with the welfare of women in media. We pay attention to their emotional health and mental well-being. We bring to them counseling because it has been a rough year, a rough time with the COVID. Since last year, we have conducted more than 15 series of counseling sessions for women in media. The fear of losing jobs, the fear of getting salary cuts has been a big challenge. And it is important that as partners and as people who are working with women in this industry, we take this into consideration and start speaking to emotional well-being and mental health. It is really, really important. Most importantly, we must hold each other's hand. We must be there for each other. And through what we are calling the Women Media Lounge, we are mentoring women and we are offering a safe space for women to learn, the safe space that Yemisi was talking about. We also have our safe space. So you can see that we are doing the same things. We are offering a safe space for mentorship. And we are calling upon all women to come to this space, be linked to a mentor, and be helped to grow in their career. Tomorrow, we'll be having a session within the AWIM conference, and we encourage each and everyone to come to that session. I would want to say that we come in partnership to support this conference because we believe that the cause is important. And it is important that we hold all the women and help them to grow. And for them to realize that there are many things that are happening out here. In my time in newsroom, AWIM was not there, WIN was not there. So there was nobody to hold our hands. These opportunities are there. Yemisi has mentioned them. I have also mentioned what we do in WIN. Let all the female journalists, irrespective of which country you come from, because for women in news, there are no borders. We welcome all of you. Please join in and let us hold each other. The resilience we are talking about will only happen if you can hold your head up. And if you fall down, you dust yourself and you stand up and you move on. That is what we are asking for. We welcome everybody to the conference, and we wish that you will be able to attend all the sessions as we move on. Let us keep the fire burning. Let us keep the fire burning. Thank you very much and most welcome.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you. And finally, I'm conscious that we are slightly behind time to start with our keynote. So finally, I'm going to invite representative from UN Women, Jamal Dushib Bieva, who's the regional communication specialist, to give very brief remarks. And then from there, we'll move on to our keynote panel. Over to you, Jamal.
Thank you so much, dear Yemisi. Dear conference participants, media professionals, and friends, on behalf of UN Women Regional Office for East and Southern Africa, I really would like to add my welcome and appreciation for you to joining us in this conference. And a huge appreciation to Dr. Yemisi and her amazing team for making this happen and bringing us together. At UN Women, we value the partnership that we have with media because we know the power of the media, and it's not only your ability to reach the broader audiences, but it's also your power, your ability to influence and shape ideas and perceptions about what is socially acceptable. We also recognize that women journalists face a lot of difficulties because of their gender, including sexual harassment and discrimination in the newsrooms. Therefore, for us, it is a huge pleasure and the big honor to be part of this conference, to be partnering with you and speaking with you. This week, we are concluding 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, as you know, which started on 25th of November, International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, and will conclude on 10th of December, Human Rights Day. Sadly, violence against women is one of the most pervasive and pressing human rights issues, with globally 1 in 3 women experiencing violence at least once in their lifetime. And among them are also colleagues working in the media. We believe that everyone should take an action, and we will be hosting a panel on 8th of December dedicated to how media can support and help us end violence against women. And we have a number of call to action messages that we will be sharing during that panel. And one of them is, of course, we want to build an equal world where journalists will be also feeling safe, because we are seeing that a lot of journalists are experiencing sexual harassment. And we would like journalists and media professionals to join us by reporting on these issues safely, ethically, and we would like to also call you on supporting organizations that work to end violence against women by giving the space for them to talk about the issues that they're working on. I would like to use this opportunity to thank you all for your bravery, for your creativity, for honesty, for the courage that you to do your work often at great personal risk. And I hope that this conference and the panels will help you equip with tools required for this. And I will leave my email address and number in case you need to reach out to me. And I wish you all a successful conference. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you very much, Jamal, and thank you to all our partners for your support of African Women in Media Conference 2021. So I'm very conscious of the time, and so I'm handing over now to Mercy, who's going to now introduce our keynote panelists, and I'll look forward to seeing you all during our various sessions and speed networking session. Thank you very much. Over to you, Mercy.
Thank you so much, Yemisi, and to all the partners that spoke so far. Well, here is a summary quickly of what we expect from today's summit. We're going to be having a keynote session which focuses on the theme of the summit, resilience, and this will be coming up in a bit. After that, There'll be a speed networking session, which I've shared with you in detail earlier on. When we return from that adventure, we will disperse into the first breakout session of the summit, where the following issues will be discussed: reporting and investigating protests, women and information disorder, are they intertwined, infodemic, and the media. That's the first session of that. These sessions will be run concurrently, so you have to make a choice there. And when we come back from our break, we will dive into the second breakout session, which will focus on the impact of COVID-19 on the media, and also about media, women, and development. And then we'll wrap it up with reporting women, the solutions journalism approach. I mean, these are very interesting and important subject matters that we all need to pay attention to. So I can tell you for free that the AWIM team did some real homework in selecting the perfect speakers for this conversation we are about to have. Women who have walked the talk and have years of results to show for it. Women who, through difficulties they face in their various fields, still get the job done and are always willing to share their knowledge with others. Let me introduce the keynote panel for AWIM 2021 that will be focused on this year's theme: building resilience, the future of media in Africa. I'll start with the first person in no particular order. Phatiswa Magopeni. She is a leading figure in journalism in South Africa and is also an academic, having taught at the University of the Western and University of Cape Town, that is UCT. She is the editor-in-chief and group executive, SABC News and Current Affairs since 2018. This Amazon, who has been in the media space since 1998, is well-versed in managing business environments characterized by volatility and complexity. You can agree with me that this is what the media faces every time and is now worsened by the global pandemic. This speaker possesses conceptual and operational competencies in strategy, organizational development, newsroom system and processes. She believes in being alert to trends and rapid changes in the external environment challenging today's media enterprise, and the need for off-the-wall strategic thinking to better respond to the needs of consumers. And oh, she makes slow cut look so good. She will be crunching her years of tears and laughter in the media space into a 50-minute conversation. Who else would you rather listen to? Ladies, let us welcome Phatiswa Magopeni. Hi, Phatiswa, just say hello.
Hello, hi, conference attendants, queens and kings of Africa.
Absolutely, so great to have you. And let's talk about the next person we'll be speaking to in this keynote session, which is Dr. Sarah Macharia. She's the Gender and Communications Manager at WACC. I call that WAC, sorry, and General Secretary at GAMAC. Dr. Macharia led the 2021 Global Media Monitoring Project. She has extensive work experience in the field of gender and human development, having worked with various African civil society and international development organizations. And because she matches her passion with action, she was named Gender Equality Champion earlier in 2021. She is your go-to person when it comes to media development, especially with gender-related matters. She has over the years talked about how a great deal of hate speech in various forms of media is directed at women. She speaks English and French, in addition to 2 East African languages. She will be bringing her years of expertise on the field to speak to us as women in building resilience, even as our gender most times are at the receiving end of harsh realities of the workplace. Ladies, let us welcome Dr. Sarah Macharia. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning, Mercy, and thank you so much. It's a privilege and an honor to be here.
Great to hear your voice. The next woman I'm about to call is Lina Attalah. I couldn't but marvel when I came across her profile. I stood in awe at her ability to resolve, I beg your pardon, to stand for the truth and inform her people with fact-based information in spite of different threats to life situations. She is the co-founder and chief editor of Mada Masar, an Egypt-based news website that attempts to fight against the restriction of honest journalism in her country, and by extension, the Arab community. Lina and her team have on several occasions been arrested, handcuffed, bundled together, and put into a police truck, yet she stands. Time recognized her as a new generation leader, calling her the Macharia of the Arab world in 2018. She's recognized as Time Magazine's 100 most influential people of 2020. And in the same 2020, she was awarded the 9th International Journalism Award from the International Center of Journalists. Ladies, if resilience were to be a person, she would be Lina Attalah. Lina, it's so nice to have you join this keynote session this morning.
It is such a great way to start the day. Thank you so much for your kind words and for this fantastic company. I look forward to talking more and listening more to everyone. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, ladies. I can't wait. I can keep calm. Let's dive straight deep into our conversation. Now, I'll begin with Phatiswa Magopeni. I mean, you have been, 3 years, right, at the helms of affairs at the SABC. And I mean, since 1998, you've been, running things in the media industry. How would you trace features of resilience in your practice and ethos? And how do you engage with it?
I don't know whether to laugh or cry, but yeah, this is what I've been through. Thank you for the opportunity and for the invitation to speak at this event. And I'm hoping to learn more from my panelists and other sessions that I'm going to attend. Here's the issue for me. Every time I'm called to talk about resilience, I find it difficult to separate it from courage. For me, these are inseparable twins. Your purpose for doing what you do is your moral signature and defines the level of resilience and courage required to fulfill it. This cannot be influenced by seasons or be subject to where you are or whom you are with. My father taught me to forgo the need to be safe and speak out on things I believe to be wrong and unjust. So there's no better space for me to do this than I do it in public service journalism. Speaking truth to power may sound like a tired trope because it's something that we say all the time. And I've always wondered if it is not time we start speaking power to the truth, because the power of the truth seems to evade leaders and nations. In my line of work, I've learned that if you are to be taken seriously, you need to be transparent about your decision-making processes, and which is what I did from the time I started at SABC, because that usually rescues you in the most difficult of circumstances. I always strive to do everything by the book, even when I have the opportunity to violate the rules for my individual benefit. This is exceptionally hard in state-owned entities like where I work, where politics and political interference are prevalent. But one thing that anchors my resilience is that I value my intellectual independence and my freedom of thought. I've always avoided groupthink. I want to own my decisions so that I can defend them and take responsibility when I'm wrong. I've done some outrageous things in my career, but most recently in 2019, I pulled off a show at launch, which was wholly conceptualized and produced without engagement with editors and myself. This was meant to be a regular Monday slot dedicated to the president for his weekly diary. This is what state broadcasters do. The SABC is not a state broadcaster, but a public service broadcaster. SABC News, which is the division I lead, is a public news service whose first loyalty is to the citizens of the country. Worse, the show, which was conceptualized without my knowledge, was in contravention of the regulations prescribed by South Africa's licensing body, ICASA. The regulations guide our elections coverage, bearing in mind that the airing of the show would have also manifested as the advantage of incumbency, where the ruling party could use state resources to enhance prospects, which is explicitly cited as something to be mindful of in the regulations as we cover elections. So this was before national elections in 2019. But the barrage of insults and ridicule that I had to endure when I canceled the show was unbelievable, but I couldn't have done it differently. I had options. I could have allowed the show to go ahead and be seen as the right person in the eyes of the state machinery, or complied with what the regulatory framework prescribes and be condemned as the enemy. I chose the latter. I faced the consequences and bounced back because I had done the right thing. The latest saga of the 24th November 2021, I've been charged for misconduct on 3 counts relating to the airing of an interdicted episode, which amounts to a contempt of court, and this is a high court interdict. There is plenty concrete evidence that I never sanctioned the airing of the interdicted story. And actually, I'm far removed from the incident, but it is now being used to deal with me following my refusal to approve an unscheduled interview with the president of the ruling party, which was on the 24th of October. So the incident was on the second last Sunday before our local government elections this year, literally weeks ago. Allowing the interview would have been a breach of our editorial governance, which is prescribed. I have read and internalized the regulatory framework of the SABC, and I could not have done it differently. But sitting here today, I'm supposed to be facing a disciplinary action tomorrow, till Thursday. But it has been moved to next Friday, which is the 17th of December. But if I look back to what I did in refusing to approve that interview with the president, I would do it again. I think it requires some dose of madness. But the greatest danger is that our need to be sweet, safe, and light is what is going to kill careers of many women, particularly in the news media. And we should avoid this at all costs. Sometimes the benefits of being a good girl can look tempting, but are they worth the ultimate cost to your conscience and your country? And my answer is no. So this is the journey that I've traversed. But as we speak now, there's a new wave of rage around what I've done again. The president was traveling to 4 countries. So it was a 4-leg trip, Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, and Nigeria. And he's still out there. So what we do regularly, since the cutting of budgets and the restructuring of SABC News, and in fact, SABC in totality, we've had to find innovative ways to still do what we need to do as a news operation. So we've subscribed to news agencies like your Feature Story Network, which is what we use to cover the president. But the issue is, because we did not put a crew on the flight that had the president to go and cover the president, which would have cost us because it's only the flights that were funded. We still had to pay accommodation for 7 days, 3 journalists, PCR tests, SNTs, and all the other stuff that comes with traveling. And that was a huge cost to the SABC, and we didn't even have the budget. But because I then said we would use Feature Story Network because we couldn't finance the other part of the trip, I'm now condemned as the person who hates the president. But the thing is, the work has to be done, and we still have to abide by the rules. And if this is about the resilience of our news operations and the resilience of our democracy, we've got to make the right decisions. So my input is as far as that is concerned. And here, thank you.
Oh my word. I don't know if I should cry right now, like you said earlier on. I mean, this experience is amazing, awesome, and that of a strong woman. Phatiswa, we are with you in solidarity. Lina, let's hear from you. How do you trace features of resilience in your practice and ethos, and how do you engage with it?
Thank you so much. It's also very hard to speak after what we heard, to be honest. But the one thing I want to start by pointing out to is that for me, the possibility of being resilient hinges to a great extent to working in a group, to being a collective. I don't think I have the strength alone to be resilient against all the odds that we face, which are not just odds related to to the political conditions in our countries and the unprecedented restrictions that we're living in, but the odds of the entire world that has not been necessarily friendly to to independent media endeavors, to well-produced and well-served information, to the sustainability of our organization. So the odds are everywhere, and for me to be able to navigate all these challenges, there is no way out from trying to work in a group, and that's why at MADA our investment from the beginning was not just in the media, in the content, in the work we produce, but also in how we can organize ourselves. How can we build a resilient organization by creating an ecology of care, by investing in serious organizational thinking, by responding to the problems and the organizational deficits that we live in, which is also specifically a symptom of the post-colonial setting that we all share. It's been very hard for us to come together and organize while also dealing with so many other challenges surrounding us in this inheritance of colonialism that we're left with. So for me, it's very important to organize, to make collectives work, to think of organizational models that are progressive, gendered, sentient, sensitive. All these are important keywords, and for me, they are what constitute traces of resilience for me. And that's why, from now on, I'd move to the pronoun of the we.
All right, Lina. Okay, let's quickly jump while we wait for Lina to get back to us. I think she has a bit of a network challenge there. It's been frozen. If you can, yeah, I can see Dr. Macharia moving, so I think, yeah, I'm good. Okay, so let's speak. Let me go to Dr. Macharia. I mean, you've been on the field for quite a while, and you've been, talking about women issues, and the challenge that women face. Could you just give us your own perspective on traces of features of resilience in your practice, and how you engage with it? Because I know so many people would have risen up against you, fought against you with some of the reports that you carry out, the service you carry out, and the like. So speak to us.
Thank you very much, Mercy, for that. And indeed, this is a wonderful space to reflect with African women in the media. So at the Global Media Monitoring Project, last year we marked a quarter century of media watching, of documenting change in women's participation in the news as subjects, as sources, and journalists. And Mercy, as you mentioned, yes, there is sometimes a pushback against the results, but we do say that the results are unrefutable because they are based on sound scientific methodology. So every 5 years since 1995, for those who do not know what the project is, which we call the GMMP in short, every 5 years since 1995, we have taken the pulse of gender in news content. And the pandemic struck just when we were planning for our 6th global monitoring. The project and the network that implements it did not only thrive, but we grew, expanding into 116 countries, monitoring more media than we had ever done, and collecting a larger volume of data than ever. In Africa, we are now present in 30 countries, and more than that if we count the North African countries. So just to go back to what Mada was saying, tracing the we, that's one feature of resilience, community. Without community, people who share the same politics, it cannot work. Gender equality work is uncomfortable for the status quo. It asks questions about discrimination against women and girls, and it stands in solidarity with other groups that are oppressed. Champions for gender equality in media, whether we are researchers, whether we are civil society activists or media workers, we find the work isolating sometimes, but there are communities that when we plug into, will lend us strength, they will lend us energy and purpose. Our network members have found this to be true. And to quote one who said, you realize that there are so many others who are concerned about the same thing just by taking part in this exercise. Another feature, which I think is very important, is memory, remembering and reminding each other why we do this. In 1994, this was when the impetus for GMMP came out. It was because of concerns about the lack of respect for the integrity and dignity of women in the media. We, at the time, there were concerns about the stereotyping of women, the dehumanization of women, turning women into commodities. And we see that even today everywhere in advertising, in a lot of our media. And it was felt that it was essential to promote forms of communication that could challenge the patriarchal nature of media, that could decentralize and democratize them. Media that could encourage dialogue and debate, and that advanced women's and people's creativity, that reaffirmed women's wisdom and knowledge. So we have to keep reminding ourselves that just 4 years ago, we revisited this foundational document, and we retained a lot of the original texts because the problems were not only still present, but they had crossed over into the digital space. They had morphed into other forms that are just as serious for women. We found that traditional and new electronic media were still domains of male patriarchal power and domination. They were replete with degrading, humiliating, and pornographic contents regarding women. In the online space, the content reproduced and excluded and ghettoized women, both within the media product, in the comments and responses of new interactive audiences, who have also become co-authors in the process of promoting and legitimizing misogyny as public discourse. In Africa, since we do collect the data, in 2005 and 2010, women were 19% of sources and subjects in our mainstream news. In 2015 and 2020, we were 22%, and that means that in Africa, we are currently below the world average of 25%. Our continent is actually at the tail end in many places, on many indicators. On the indicator regarding women's participation as news reporters, only once out of the 6 global monitoring studies that we have carried out since 1995 has Africa not been the poorest performer. Only 32% of the stories are reported by women in mainstream print and broadcast news. And at 32%, we are below the world average on this. So remembering is enough impetus to persist, not to stop halfway en route, but to continue taking the next step and the next.
All right.
And maybe I can.
Dr. Macharia, I have to butt in here, my sister, apologies, but I really love the fact, and I like the fact that you spoke about memory. Remembering is very important. But one of our keynote speakers, Lina, would have to run as quickly as possible. So I don't want her to, I would have said you should round up with what we were saying the last time, but let me just go ahead and ask the next question, which is very related to what we're talking about here today. What impact do we want the resilience we're talking about to have on the media? Lina, I'd like to start from you because you're someone who is in the meat of the matter as we speak. Let's go on.
Thank you so much, and apologies about the internet instability here in Cairo. For us, what I started talking about in terms of institutional building and investing in organizing, the aim for this is for as far as we're concerned in MADA, for example, is to try to rebuild trust around media as an important vehicle to information, to intelligent conversations, to the crafting of positions at a time when the media has been completely negatively influenced by either capitalist capture or state control. So the idea behind the resilience, behind staying, behind surviving is to be able to create this community around the media work that we do, whereby this community trusts again the importance of the presence of an independent media voice, and not just one voice, but a diversity of voices that can basically navigate the complexities of the surrounding realities around us, especially that, you know, our craft is endangered again by so much control from institutions of power, and I feel this impact is constantly felt when we feel that a growing community is only expanding around us. For example, at MEDA at the beginning when we started, it was mostly you know, people who are sharing some political affinities with us, who would follow us and who would follow the content we do. But also what's amazing for me in terms of impact is to see how more people are following us now, even if they don't always agree with us, even if they a lot of the times actually disagree with us, mainly because there aren't many independent voices around. So this is the impact that I'm looking for, to rebuild this trust in the importance of independently produced media, especially in societies that are heavily politically controlled, that, you know, is lacking again in engaged conversations that can help them craft progressive positions on different questions. I think you're muted.
Thank you so much, Lina, for your input here. We really don't want to keep you waiting. If you're still available to stay for the next few minutes, we'll be very glad to. But let's hear from Phatiswa. I mean, you just told us a story now, and right now I just feel like flying down to South Africa to fight for you or something, if I could. But let's talk about what impact you want this character of resilience we talked about earlier to have, on the media.
The character of resilience I'm thinking of should have its primary obligation to the truth and the citizens' right to know, which means the commitment to reporting on citizens' lived experiences and observable reality, regardless of state pressures and repression. I know that in our continent, the fear of victimization, harassment, intimidation, and imprisonment remains a huge challenge for many journalists, regardless of gender. Just a glance at the latest World Press Freedom Index, you will know how, and you will see how we fare as different countries on the continent, and the picture is not good. Even those that appear to be open to media freedom on paper, in practice, this is not necessarily the case. And as a woman in this space, this means that facing the daunting and exhausting effort of fighting editorial and gender bullying by politicians, state authorities, and business leaders. And on the character of resilience and the impact it should have on the media, I can point out a few. Firstly, it should be grounded on social justice. This is the notion that all citizens deserve equal economic, political, and social rights and opportunities and social solidarity. This means that as women in media, we need to stand up to all authority, both government and business, to ensure that human rights and the dignity of citizens are respected and preserved. If we are to strive for this, there will be hurdles along the journey, and we need to have psychological and emotional resilience to recover from that. And the second point is that it should adopt an active participatory role. All power needs witnesses. Freedom of expression on its own is nothing and means nothing. We need to constantly ask ourselves, how does our freedom as the media enhance free flow of information and promote access to information and its right to know? We need to bear in mind that citizens can only participate meaningfully in democratic and governance processes, as well as shape their futures, if they have access to credible, untrammeled information. Knowing what we know in our countries, is this what we do? What risks are we prepared to take to ensure that this happens? And the third part is that the news media should go back to basics. Its primary responsibility to the citizens must be fulfilled. The media should play a critical watchdog role in the interest of the citizens and hold the feet of those in authority to the fire and provide news and information that drive human development and progress. There are dangers and setbacks to be encountered, but a resilient media is what citizens require. And lastly, on this matter, if we want to talk about building resilience as it relates to the future of the media on the continent, as women in the media, what questions are we asking government and business authorities about the state of our countries and the quality of life of the citizens? What is the quality of the news and information that we expose citizens to as the media? How helpful and credible is that information in assisting citizens to make informed decisions about their daily lives and experiences? These are things we need to think about as women in the media. What should a resilient media do for our nations? What should a resilient media do for the citizens of the African continent? What is our contribution as women in this space to the future of the media, resilience of public institutions in our nations? What are we prepared to risk and forego our need for comfort and safety to make sure that we make impact and meaningful contribution? How will the next generation judge us as women in the media? And answering these questions earnestly is critical to the sustainability of nations and stable, resilient democracies. If our resilience as individuals doesn't trigger this level of reflection, then we need to ask ourselves different questions about our true intentions and interrogate our higher purpose as women in the media. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much for this, really. Thank you, really grateful. Dr. Macharia, Sarah Macharia, let's switch sides a bit here. And as someone who has been in the field, advocating for women at all fronts, what are the levels of change that we expect here? And how do we increase women's visibility and representation as professionals in journalism? And the reason why this is important is because a lot of women who are leaders are saying, the more women we have representing women at the top, the people who are there will be forced to take a look at women issues, but the lesser they are, the lesser voice that they have. So talk to us about the levels of change and the way we can increase women's visibility and representation as professionals in journalism.
Thank you, Mercy. I like to think of it also as levers of change. What tools, if applied, can result in transformation of the media ecosystem to one that is more just, that is more gender just, that is more equal, that enables women's full and equal participation? And I think one level of change is media policy and regulation. But it's not enough to have policy. Some current research on global media policy and regulation found that actually there is a mention of gender equality in almost every country, in whether it's at media industry level, whether it is in media media houses. But it is not enough to have these instruments if those implicated in upholding them do not know about it. Success in media policy implementation has been traced to dialogue within media houses, dialogue within the media community, the journalistic community. That is important. A second level of change is media practice. That is professionalizing journalistic practice from a gender perspective. How do media professionals understand professionalism? When they look at the basic tenets of journalistic practice, they look at accuracy, fairness, balance, truthfulness. Do they see the gender lens in all that? So it is important to integrate the gender lens in there. And once that is done, then we are closer to arriving at a more gender just content, more gender just practice. And then there is the other level of active media citizenship, media watch and advocacy, which enables critical media literacy. That is very important. What we found in our research is that, in fact, women journalists will tend to have a sharper gender lens in their work. They bring in a sharper gender lens in their work, especially on our continent, and it's not necessarily in the rest of the world, but on our continent, our stories produced by women journalists will tend to have a bigger focus on gender equality than stories produced by men journalists. They will also tend to have more women as sources. So when all this is put into the mix, then women's participation